There's a vegetable that was once so common in American gardens that every family grew it, but today it's completely vanished from our tables. While you're buying the same 5 vegetables at every grocery store, entire varieties that fed America for generations have disappeared forever. These aren't just old-fashioned plants. They're pieces of our agricultural heritage that we've lost to corporate farming and convenience culture. What I'm about to show you will make you realize how much flavor, nutrition, and history we've sacrificed for modern convenience. Vegetable number 20, tennis ball, lettuce. Let's start with a lettuce variety that Thomas Jefferson himself grew at Monticello. Tennis ball lettuce was a compact butterhead variety that dates back to the 18th century, forming tight, round heads about the size of, you guessed it, a tennis ball. This wasn't just any lettuce. It was prized for its incredibly tender leaves and sweet flavor that made it a favorite in colonial gardens. What made tennis ball lettuce special was its perfect size for small families and its ability to handle light frost, extending the growing season when other lettuces would bolt or freeze. The heads were just the right size for a family meal, eliminating waste while providing consistently tender leaves from outer edge to center core. This lettuce vanished as commercial agriculture focused on varieties that could withstand mechanical harvesting and long-distance shipping. The delicate nature that made tennis ball lettuce so delicious also made it unsuitable for modern distribution systems, and gradually it disappeared from American gardens. Vegetable number 19, Long Island cheese pumpkin. Before orange jack-o'-lantern pumpkins dominated fall displays, American families grew Long Island cheese pumpkins, flattened, tan-colored fruits that looked exactly like wheels of aged cheese. These pumpkins were the standard pie pumpkin in the Northeast for over 200 years, prized for their sweet, dense flesh and incredible storage ability. The name perfectly describes their appearance. These pumpkins are deeply ribbed and flattened, with a pale tan color that makes them look like enormous wheels of cheese sitting in the field. But their looks were just the beginning. The flesh inside was incredibly sweet and smooth, perfect for pies, custards, and other desserts that required the finest pumpkin flavor. These pumpkins disappeared as commercial growers focused on uniform orange varieties that looked better in stores and shipped more easily. The superior flavor and storage ability of Long Island cheese pumpkins couldn't compete with the visual appeal of bright orange pumpkins that consumers expected to see. Vegetable number 18, Jimmy Nardello's sweet Italian frying pepper. Here's a pepper with an immigration story that nearly ended in extinction. Jimmy Nardello's sweet Italian frying pepper came to America in 1887 when Jimmy's mother brought seeds from Italy, sewn into the hem of her dress. For 4 generations, the Nardello family kept this variety as their closely guarded secret, never sharing seeds with anyone outside the family. These long, slender peppers develop an incredibly sweet, almost fruity flavor when cooked with absolutely no heat whatsoever. The thin walls make them perfect for frying, where they become tender and slightly caramelized, creating a side dish so delicious it converts pepper haters into pepper lovers with a single bite. The variety nearly vanished when Jimmy Nardello aged and had no children to pass the seeds to. Fortunately, in the 1980s, he donated seeds to Seed Savers Exchange, ensuring this incredible pepper wouldn't die with him. This pepper represents how close we came to losing irreplaceable genetic heritage. Vegetable number 17, glass gem corn. This isn't just corn. It's living art that tells the story of American agricultural heritage in every translucent kernel. Glass gem corn was developed by Carl Barnes, a Cherokee farmer who spent decades selecting and saving seeds to create what might be the most beautiful corn ever grown, with each ear displaying unique patterns of jewel-toned kernels. Carl Barnes created this variety by carefully preserving and crossing ancient Native American corn varieties, some of which had been grown for over 1,000 years. Each ear is completely unique, displaying translucent kernels in every color imaginable: deep blues, vibrant reds, golden yellows, and pure whites that seem to glow from within like precious gems. Glass gem corn represents both the beauty of genetic diversity and how close we came to losing it forever. Carl Barnes saved varieties that were on the verge of extinction, creating something new while preserving ancient genetics that would have been lost to industrial agriculture. Vegetable number 16, mortgage lifter, tomato. Here's a tomato that literally paid off a mortgage during the Great Depression, proving that innovation and persistence could create something valuable enough to change a family's financial future. Charlie Biles, a West Virginia mechanic with no formal plant breeding experience, developed this variety by crossing 4 different heirloom tomatoes and selecting for the largest, most flavorful fruits. These massive tomatoes regularly weigh 2 to 4 pounds each, with incredibly sweet, low-acid flavor that's perfect for people who usually find tomatoes too tart. Charlie sold plants for $1 each, a hefty price in the 1940s, and people drove hundreds of miles to buy them, allowing him to pay off his $6,000 mortgage in just 6 years. The mortgage lifter nearly vanished as commercial agriculture focused on varieties that could be machine harvested and shipped long distances. The very qualities that made these tomatoes so valuable, their size, flavor, and delicate nature, made them unsuitable for industrial production, and they gradually disappeared from mainstream cultivation. Vegetable number 15, Cherokee purple tomato. This heirloom variety from the Cherokee Nation proves that the most beautiful vegetables often come in unexpected forms. Cherokee purple tomatoes have an unusual dusky purple color with purple-black shoulders that fade to green and red, creating a unique appearance that's instantly recognizable to anyone who's grown them. The flavor is absolutely extraordinary, rich, smoky, and complex in ways that modern tomatoes simply can't match. The incredibly rich, almost wine-like taste has hints of smokiness that make them perfect for fresh eating, while the dense, meaty flesh provides perfect balance of sweetness and acidity. Cherokee purple tomatoes nearly disappeared as commercial growers focused on red varieties that looked more familiar to consumers. The unusual coloring that makes these tomatoes so special also made them harder to market, and they gradually vanished from mainstream cultivation until seed savers recognized their value. Vegetable number 14, moon and stars, watermelon. Imagine a watermelon that looks like a piece of the night sky fell to earth. Moon and stars, watermelon has dark green skin dotted with yellow spots resembling stars, with larger patches that look like moons, creating one of the most beautiful fruits ever grown in American gardens. This stunning variety was developed in the 1920s, but nearly disappeared until it was rediscovered and saved by dedicated seed savers in the 1980s. The large melons have sweet red flesh with old-fashioned watermelon flavor that's been bred out of most modern varieties. Intensely sweet, with just enough complexity to keep you coming back for more. Moon and Stars watermelon vanished as commercial growers focused on uniform varieties that looked more conventional and shipped better. The unique appearance that makes this variety so special also made it harder to market to consumers who expected watermelons to look a certain way. Vegetable number 13, Brandywine tomato. If you've never tasted a real Brandywine tomato, you've never experienced what tomatoes are supposed to taste like. This Amish heirloom from the 1880s produces massive pink-skinned fruits with flavor so intense it puts every modern hybrid to shame, representing 140 years of careful selection for flavor over appearance. These irregularly shaped tomatoes have incredibly rich, sweet taste with perfect acidity balance that creates eating experiences unlike any modern variety. What makes Brandywine tomatoes truly special is their connection to American agricultural history, grown continuously by Amish families in Pennsylvania for over 140 years. Brandywine tomatoes nearly vanished as commercial agriculture focused on varieties that could be machine harvested and shipped long distances. The irregular shape, delicate skin, and variable ripening that make these tomatoes so flavorful also made them unsuitable for industrial production. Vegetable number 12, Kushaw squash. Long before butternut squash dominated grocery stores, American families grew Kushaw squash, the survival squash that could feed families through long winters with its incredible storage ability and versatile, sweet flesh. These distinctive squash are instantly recognizable by their curved neck and bulbous bottom, giving them an almost gourd-like appearance. The flavor of Kushaw squash is complex and sweet, with hints of butterscotch and honey that make it perfect for both sweet and savory applications. What made Kushaw squash truly valuable was its incredible storage ability. These squash could last 8 to 12 months in a cool, dry place, providing fresh vegetables well into the following summer. Kushaw squash vanished as commercial growers focused on uniform varieties that looked more conventional and shipped better. The unusual shape and variable size that made these squash so practical for home storage also made them difficult to package and market in modern retail environments. Vegetable number 11, Detroit dark red beet. Developed in the 1890s specifically for American gardens, Detroit dark red beets were perfectly round, deep red throughout, and incredibly sweet. Everything American families wanted in a beet. This variety combined the best traits of European varieties with adaptations for American growing conditions, creating the perfect beet for home gardens. These beets taste like beets are supposed to, earthy and sweet, with none of the muddy or bitter flavors that plague many modern varieties. The plants are incredibly easy to grow, tolerating both heat and cold while producing consistently good crops in a wide range of soil conditions. Detroit dark red beets vanished as commercial growers focused on varieties that could be mechanically harvested and processed more efficiently. The perfect round shape and tender texture that made these beets so valuable for home use also made them more fragile and harder to handle in industrial settings. Vegetable number 10, Stowell's evergreen sweet corn. Before super sweet varieties took over, families grew Stowell's evergreen, the corn that waits for you. Developed in the 1840s by Nathan Stowell, this variety solved sweet corn's biggest problem by staying tender and sweet for 2 to 3 weeks after reaching maturity, allowing extended harvests instead of overwhelming gluts. The large ears with white, plump kernels have rich, complex corn flavor, what sweet corn used to taste like before breeding, focused on sugar content over flavor complexity. The tall, vigorous plants often reach 7 to 8 feet high, making them excellent for windbreaks and privacy screens. Stowell's evergreen vanished as plant breeders developed super sweet varieties that had higher sugar content but lost the complex flavors and extended harvest window that made this variety so practical. Modern corn varieties focus on immediate sweetness rather than the balanced flavor and practicality that made Stowell's evergreen so valuable. Vegetable number 9, American ground cherry. Hidden beneath papery husks, American ground cherries were once common in gardens throughout the country, prized for their sweet, tropical flavor that tastes like a cross between pineapple and tomato. These small golden fruits were perfect for eating fresh, making into preserves, or drying for winter storage. The plants are remarkably productive, often yielding several pounds of fruit per plant throughout the growing season. The papery husks protect the fruits from pests and weather, allowing them to store well both on the plant and after harvest, while children especially loved them because they could eat them like candy straight from the garden. American ground cherries vanished as commercial agriculture focused on fruits that could be mechanically harvested and shipped long distances. The delicate papery husks and small size that made ground cherries so perfect for home gardens also made them unsuitable for industrial production and modern retail distribution. Vegetable number 8, Hubbard squash. Before butternut squash dominated stores, families grew massive Hubbard squash, warty giants weighing 10 to 25 pounds that could feed a family for weeks while storing perfectly for 6 to 8 months. The distinctive teardrop shape and bumpy, warty skin might not look pretty by modern standards, but they're incredibly functional. The bright orange flesh is sweet and versatile, working beautifully in everything from breakfast porridge to dinner casseroles. A single large Hubbard squash provided enough food for dozens of meals, making it incredibly economical for families trying to stretch their food budget. Hubbard squash vanished as consumers preferred smaller, more convenient varieties that could be used in single meals. The very size and storage ability that made these squash so valuable for traditional families also made them impractical for modern households with smaller families and different cooking habits. Vegetable number 7, scarlet runner beans. Before pole beans became ordinary vegetables, scarlet runner beans were garden stars, providing food, beauty, and natural air conditioning in one spectacular package. These remarkable beans produce stunning bright red flowers that attract hummingbirds while creating living walls that can reach 10 to 12 feet high. The young pods taste like nutty snap beans when harvested at 4 to 6 inches long, while mature beans provide protein-rich food for winter storage. Planted along south-facing walls, the vigorous vines created natural cooling that could reduce indoor temperatures by 10 to 15 degrees during hot summer days. Scarlet runner beans vanished as gardeners focused on more productive pole bean varieties that didn't require as much space. The ornamental qualities that made these beans so valuable for traditional gardens became less important as yards got smaller and gardening became more utilitarian. Vegetable number 6, yard-long beans. Forget everything you think you know about green beans. Yard-long beans can grow up to 3 feet long and provide more food per square foot than any other bean variety. These remarkable beans are actually more closely related to black-eyed peas than to common green beans, but they're harvested and eaten like snap beans when young and tender. The flavor is slightly nuttier and more complex than regular green beans, with a crisp texture that holds up beautifully in stir-fries. The plants are remarkably heat-tolerant, continuing to produce during the hottest summer weather when regular green beans shut down, while their vertical growing habit makes them perfect for small gardens. Yard-long beans vanished as American gardeners focused on familiar varieties that looked and tasted like traditional green beans. The unusual length and different growing requirements that made these beans so productive also made them seem foreign to gardeners who preferred conventional vegetables. Vegetable number 5, fish pepper. Here's a pepper with a story as spicy as its flavor. The fish pepper was developed by African American farmers in the Chesapeake Bay region, specifically for seafood houses and oyster bars, where its unique heat and flavor profile made it the perfect complement to fresh fish and shellfish. What makes fish peppers truly unique is their striking appearance. The plants have variegated leaves splashed with white and green, while the peppers start out striped and speckled. The moderate heat with complex fruity flavor enhances rather than masks seafood, making them legendary in the seafood industry. Fish peppers were so closely associated with the Chesapeake Bay seafood industry that they were grown almost exclusively by African American farmers who supplied the region's restaurants. The variety was passed down through families and communities until it nearly vanished when the traditional seafood industry declined. Vegetable number 4, Good King Henry. With a name like Good King Henry, you'd expect something regal, and this strange vegetable doesn't disappoint. Also called Mercury or wild spinach, Good King Henry looks like a cross between spinach and lamb's quarters, with triangular arrow-shaped leaves that have a distinctive silvery green color. What made Good King Henry truly weird was how it was used. Virtually every part of the plant was edible at different times of the year. The young shoots were harvested like asparagus in spring. The leaves were used like spinach throughout summer, and even the flower spikes were eaten like broccoli when young and tender. Good King Henry vanished as gardeners focused on single-purpose vegetables that were easier to understand and use. The multi-season, multi-part harvest that made this plant so valuable for traditional families also made it confusing for modern gardeners who preferred simpler, more familiar vegetables. Vegetable number 3, Salsify. Here's a vegetable so weird that most people today wouldn't even recognize it as food. Salsify, also called oyster plant, looks like a long, thin, dirty white carrot covered in stringy roots and topped with grass-like leaves. But beneath that unpromising exterior lies one of the most unique flavors in the vegetable kingdom. When cooked, Salsify develops a delicate flavor that's remarkably similar to fresh oysters, hence its common name. This made it incredibly valuable for inland families who had no access to fresh seafood but craved those complex, briny flavors. Salsify could be boiled, mashed, or made into fritters that tasted surprisingly like oyster cakes. Salsify vanished as transportation improved and fresh seafood became available inland, eliminating the need for oyster substitutes. The unusual appearance and labor-intensive preparation that made Salsify a curiosity also made it unappealing to modern gardeners who preferred more conventional vegetables that were easier to grow and prepare. Vegetable number 2, Celeriac. Imagine a vegetable that looks like a brain crossed with a turnip, covered in gnarly roots and bumps that make it appear almost alien. That's celeriac, also called celery root, one of the weirdest looking vegetables ever grown in American gardens, yet prized by European immigrants for its incredible flavor and versatility. Despite its bizarre appearance, celeriac has an intense celery flavor concentrated in its swollen root. When peeled and cooked, it reveals creamy white flesh that can be mashed like potatoes, roasted like root vegetables, or grated raw for salads. The flavor is complex and aromatic, adding depth to soups and stews that regular celery simply can't match. Celeriac vanished as American taste shifted toward more familiar-looking vegetables that didn't require explanation or special preparation. The gnarly, alien appearance that made celeriac so distinctive also made it unmarketable to consumers who preferred vegetables that looked more conventional and appetizing. Vegetable number 1, dandelion. At the top of our list sits the most misunderstood plant in America, the dandelion. What most people consider the ultimate weed was actually one of the most valuable vegetables our grandparents grew, providing food, medicine, and even coffee substitute from a single, incredibly hardy plant. Every part of the dandelion is edible and nutritious. The young leaves make excellent salads or cooked greens. The flowers can be battered and fried or made into wine, and the roots can be roasted and ground as a coffee substitute. The leaves contain more vitamins A, C, and K than most cultivated vegetables, plus high levels of iron, calcium, and potassium. Dandelions vanished from American tables as suburban lawn culture took over, and people began viewing them as weeds rather than food. The shift from practical gardening to ornamental landscaping transformed one of our most nutritious and reliable vegetables into public enemy number 1, leading to decades of chemical warfare against a plant that once fed families. These 20 vanished vegetables represent more than just lost varieties. They're pieces of American agricultural heritage that we've sacrificed for convenience, uniformity, and corporate profits. From Thomas Jefferson's tennis ball lettuce to the immigrant stories of Jimmy Nardello's peppers, each variety tells a story of flavor, nutrition, and cultural significance that we can never fully recover. While we can't bring back what's been lost forever, we can learn from these disappearances and work to preserve the heritage varieties that still remain. If you're ready to discover more about America's forgotten agricultural treasures and the stories they tell, make sure to subscribe for more lost varieties that shaped our nation's food history, and don't miss the next video on your screen where I reveal even more vanished crops that once fed America.